From Washington, this is VOA News. President Obama defends his position on Syria and picks up more support in Washington. South African gold miners go on strike. I'm Jim Stevenson reporting from Washington. A possible U.S. military strike against Syria picked up another endorsement in Washington. The Senate Foreign Relations Committee approved a resolution Wednesday to give President Obama the authority to take military action against Syria for using chemical weapons on civilians. The Senate resolution calls for limited action lasting no more than 90 days. It says no U.S. soldier would be put on the ground, an assurance to lawmakers who do not want the United States to become embroiled in another war. The measure now goes to the full Senate. The House of Representatives must also vote on it. President Obama says it is the international community's credibility, not his own, that is at stake if Syria's alleged chemical attacks on its people are not addressed. He spoke in Stockholm Wednesday after meeting with Sweden's Prime Minister. VOA's Kent Klein reports.
At a joint news conference, Mr. Obama reacted defiantly to suggestions that his credibility will be damaged if his proposal for military strikes on Syrian facilities is rejected by Congress.
First of all, I didn't set a red line. The world set a red line. The world set a red line when governments representing 98% of the world's population said the use of chemical weapons are abhorrent and passed a treaty forbidding their use even when countries are engaged in war.
The president said Congress, which ratified the treaty, also bears responsibility for helping to uphold global norms against the use of chemical weapons. Kent Klein, VOA News, the White House.
President Obama said he and the Swedish Prime Minister were in agreement that the international community could not be silent in the face of barbarism in Sweden and that a failure to act would increase the possibility of further attacks. Mr. Obama is on a one-day visit to Stockholm before flying to Russia for the G20 summit in St. Petersburg, where Syria is expected to be high on the agenda. There's much more on our website at voanews.com. President Obama says the United States is consulting with European Union nations and other countries about a clandestine American surveillance program to keep the spying from, in his words, tipping over to being too intrusive. During remarks in Stockholm, he acknowledged that technological advances have increased the chances for abuse. Mr. Obama is the first U.S. president to visit Sweden. Tens of thousands of South African gold miners are on strike after their union rejected a final offer from major mining firms. The National Union of Mine Workers says the strike will continue indefinitely until its demands are met. The union, which represents more than 80,000 gold miners, is seeking pay hikes of 60%. Employers have offered an increase of 6.5%. Oxfam is calling for world leaders meeting at the G20 summit in St. Petersburg this week to rewrite tax laws that currently allow companies to underpay taxes owed to African countries. Oxfam says this form of tax evasion costs African governments more than $38 billion per year. Jennifer Lazuta reports.
Oxfam says that African countries are losing almost 2% of their gross domestic product each year because of what it calls a broken tax system that allows multinational corporations to avoid paying taxes in the countries where they actually do business. G20 finance ministers endorsed a plan to cut down on corporate tax evasion in July and are expected to discuss the issue at this week's summit in St. Petersburg. Oxfam says developing countries, including those in Africa, are currently excluded from negotiations at the G20 about global tax law reform, but need to have a seat at the table. Jennifer Lazuta for VOA News, Dakar.
A coroner in the Midwestern U.S. state of Ohio says the man who held 3 women captive for more than a decade committed suicide in prison. Convicted rapist and kidnapper Errol Castro used a bedsheet to hang himself. Castro was arrested in May after one of his captives escaped from his Cleveland home and ran to neighbors for help. Castro kidnapped the women separately between 2002 and 2004 and raped them repeatedly during their captivity. One of the women, Amanda Berry, gave birth to a daughter. Castro pled guilty last month to more than 900 criminal charges and was sentenced to life in prison. Authorities in the western U.S. state of California have lifted evacuation advisories around the well-known Yosemite National Park as firefighters battling a massive wildfire there continue to make gains. Firefighters have contained 80% of the so-called rim fire. More on our website at voanews.com. I'm Jim Stevenson, VOA News.